In this video, I wanted to see if I could beat a Hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Blaze Black 2. Blaze Black 2 is an ultra hard ROM hack for Pokémon Black 2 that aims to keep the basic structure of Black 2 intact while making the game insanely hard. Similar to Renegade Platinum, Blaze Black 2 reworks gym leaders' teams, adds new boss battles, and improves the AI. Blaze Black 2 also adds 503 different Pokémon available as wild encounters, meaning we're going to have plenty of different Pokémon available as cannon fodder. We're really going to need every single one of those willing sacrifices though, because I'm going to be playing this crazy difficult ROM hack with Hardcore Nuzlocke rules. Under these rules, if a Pokémon faints, it's considered dead and must be released. I can also only catch the first encounter per area. The rest of the rules to this run can be seen on screen now and in the description. I'll also be playing the version of Blaze Black 2 that does not include EVs to avoid giving any of my Pokémon a stat advantage. I'll also be attempting to get through this ROM hack without using any setup moves like Swords Dance or Dragon Dance, because I like pain apparently. Speaking of being a masochist, I've also decided to do this all on challenge mode, which takes a game about as difficult as Renegade Platinum and makes it even harder. Wish me luck. With the rules out the way, let's jump right into this run. I would say if you enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, and if you want to see more content in the future and support what I do, remember to subscribe. Now on with the video. So first up, we've got to pick our starter, and unlike Renegade Platinum, I don't know if you get the other starters you don't pick later on, and I have no idea which of these three is considered better. Because of this, I decide to let RNG decide and pick based on the first digit of my trainer ID. Of course, it's 0. This means I'm gonna have to pick anyway, so I decide on Oshawott as he's the cutest, so welcome to the team, Battle Ox. I clearly made the correct decision because Battle Ox has the ability Shell Armor. This is one of the best abilities in the game because it makes Battle Ox completely immune to critical hits. It's then a quick battle with our rival Kyber before our journey really starts, which means we can go catch our first encounter of the run. I'm so excited to see what we're gonna get. I have no idea what's on any of these routes, so the possibilities are endless. Maybe we'll get something really good like a pseudo legendary, or we'll end up with this ugly look. Oh well, Plane did really well the last time I was in Unova, so maybe Ancient Elf will be able to carry that legacy forward. Once we reach the next town, I'm talking to this random man, and he says he can give me a Pokemon that will help cover Battle Ox's weaknesses to grass-type Pokemon. I really hope that doesn't mean he's gonna give me a... Looks like I'm getting the turd monkey Pansear. Pansear is the worst of the elemental monkeys, and he has a poo on his head, but at least with Time Wizard I now have a fire type, so that's something. We can then head on to Route 20 to find our next encounter, which turns out to be a Pidove. Pidove was never really the greatest normal starting bird, but who knows, maybe he's received a buff. Welcome to the team, Wingard. Next, on Flossie Ranch, we find Azurill, and unless Azurill has been massively buffed, she's gonna either be amazing if she has huge power, or utterly useless if she has thick fat, so fingers crossed. Of course. Oh well, another future sacrifice added to our party, and thanks to being so excited at joining our little band of sacrifices, Ruran is immediately able to evolve into Marill. That's the last encounter we get before the first gym, but before we can get to that point, we've got our first member of Team Plasma to deal with, and this fight completely catches me off guard. Firstly, it's a double battle, so while this random grunt starts with the Growlithe and Minintho, I start with Time Wizard and Battle Ox. I don't know the movesets of these Pokemon, so I decide I'm probably best taking one of them out the fight as soon as I can, so I go through a Yawn into the Minintho. Growlithe has got off an Intimidate, so I decide it's probably best to switch Battle Ox out the Re. As I switch, Growlithe goes through a Helping Hand, and Minintho goes through a Fake Out into Time Wizard, meaning I'm not able to get off the Yawn. I decide to try again on the next turn and go through another Yawn. Growlithe gets off a Helping Hand as Yawn connects into the Minintho. Ryu is able to land a decently strong Water Gun into the Growlithe, and then unfortunately Minintho lands a Helping Hand boosted Vital Throw into Time Wizard that takes down my turd monkey. I honestly wasn't expecting that to do so much damage, and it cost me my fire type. Rest in peace, Time Wizard. I decide to send Battle Ox back out in response now that he's shaken off the Intimidate. Battle Ox is then able to immediately finish off the Clapping Fire Puppy with an Aqua Jet, and then Minintho gets off a Grass Knot into Re that luckily doesn't do too much. A Disarming Voice then does 50% to Minintho, and then Minintho falls asleep as this Team Plasma grunt sends out Joltik. That's terrifying because 3 out of 4 of my Pokemon are weak to electric. Thankfully, Minintho stays asleep as the Joltik lands a Shockwave into Battle Ox that does a huge amount. Battle Ox is able to hit back back with a strong Razor Shell, and then I get really lucky as Ree is able to land a Sing, putting the stupid Zappy bug to sleep. I can't risk Battle Ox taking another hit, so I decide to switch into Ancient Elf. As I switch, Miningthea wakes up and lands a weak Grass Knot into Ancient Elf before Ree is able to land a second Disarming Voice that takes down the stupid Meerkat. The Team Plasma Grunt then sends out an Axew. What is this guy's team? Luckily, Joltik stays asleep, meaning Ancient Elf is able to take down the bug with a Headbutt, and then Ree is able to outspeed the Axew and take it down with one critical hit Disarming Voice. That was super crazy. Thankfully we had Ree, or that could have gotten ugly fast. Maybe I was too quick to talk. Thankfully, with that out of the way, it's a straight shot to the first gym. So the first gym leader of this game is Charon. Where to even start? Charon is hard enough in the base game, but in this ROM hack, his team is terrifying, and with only 4 Pokemon, none of which are fighting types, this could get ugly really quickly. The only real advantage I have is the fact that Ancient Elf has at least learnt Low Kick, but this is going to be an uphill battle, so let's jump right in. Porygon has Thunder Shock, so I have to start with Ancient Elf, and I don't want to go for Low Kick here because Porygon is holding a berry that will reduce the damage. So I start with a Headbutt that does a worryingly small amount, and Porygon lands a really strong Swift that does over half. I have no choice though but to keep Ancient Elf in and hope for a flinch, so I go through another Headbutt, and unfortunately Porygon is able to hit back with another Swift and KO my poor ugly rat. Rest in peace, Ancient Elf. I decide my best bet is then sending in Battle Ox, who at the very least is able to come in and KO the Computer Virus with a single Razor Shell. Second is Lillipup, who has Thunderfang. I have to get lucky here with Workups, or I am just going to straight up lose. Lillipup starts by going through a Workup, perfect. He also has his defense lowered by a Razor Shell, meaning a single Aqua Jet is then enough for the KO. Third is Munchlax, and I immediately go through a Razor Shell. Luckily, Munchlax just goes through a Workup in response. A second Razor Shell brings Munchlax to below half before an Oran Berry heals back some of the damage. Munchlax then lands a Rock Tomb that does a huge amount. Luckily though, on the next turn, Battle Ox is able to land another Razor Shell that brings Munchlax into the red before surviving another Rock Tomb. A single Aqua Jet is then enough to finish off the Munchlax. Third is Deerling, so I switch into Wingard as Deerling goes for a Workup. Deerling then hits hard with a Tackle before Wingard is able to hit back with an Air Cutter that does over half. Wingard then has to take another Tackle, but luckily she survives and is able to finish off the Deerling with a second Air Cutter. Fourth is Apom, so I switch into Ree on a Workup. I decide to take a risk and go through a Sing as Apom sets up another Workup and it lands. I love you, Ree. I then start going for Charms to bring Apom's attack back down as Apom stays asleep. On the next turn, Apom wakes up and gets off another Workup. Ree then hits a Bubble Beam that does a stupidly low amount. What did I say about loving you, you stupid blue ball? Because I take it back. I decide to go through a second Charm as Apom goes for another Workup. I then get off 3 more Charms while Apom just goes to Workups. Eventually, I assume Apom is at +6 special attack because he goes through a Water Pulse that thanks to a Water Gem does a huge amount. Luckily, that's gone now, so Ree is safe to stay in and start going for Bubble Beams, or so I think, because another Water Pulse connects and does a lot more than I'm expecting. Ree is able to get off another Bubble Beam, but on the following turn, it's taken down by Boots the Monkey. Rest in peace, Ree, you won't be missed. Coming down to the wire here, so I send in Battle Ox, hoping for a miracle. Annoyingly, Apom survives a Razor Shell on what looks like 1 HP, and is able to get off another Water Pulse that very nearly KOs Battle Ox. He survives and is able to take down the monkey with a single Aqua Jet on the following turn, but last to Charon is Doduo, and I think I lost. I decide to risk Battle Ox with an Aqua Jet that I hope might crit, but Doduo is just faster and lands a quick attack, KOing my starter. Rest in peace, Battle Ox, you carried as hard as you could. So here we are, my half health bird versus Doduo. I have a chance here because Wingard has super luck, so I might just be able to pull off a win. So I click Air Cutter and hold my breath, and the Dodo goes to Workup. This lets Wingard get off a really strong Air Cutter. We might be able to do this. So I go through a quick attack, but unfortunately Doduo outspeeds and ends attempt 1. That was really close to a first attempt, and had we not lost Time Wizard, we might have been able to pull off a win. Let's see if attempt 2 goes any better. So this time around, when it comes to starters, we end up with a 3 on our trainer ID, so it looks like we're getting Snivy, the baby dragon. Now Snivy seems great, but it does mean I'm really going to struggle against the second and third gym if we actually make it that far, so this could be a problem. Moving on from that though, we get to rebuild our team, before the first gym. We re-catch Ancient Elf on Route 19, pick up our Water Monkey, this time instead of the Turd Monkey, who we name Rogue Doll. Then on Route 20, we re-catch Wingard, and then on Philosophy Ranch, instead of trying to catch a Pokemon, I receive a randomized egg from this random breeder. The egg hatches in no time at all, and we get to add Zeromant the Celio to our team. I'm not sure if Celio will be any good, but I'm excited to find out. Next up, we've got the Team Plasma Grunt to deal with, and thanks to being prepared, this time he falls with no casualties. With that, it's time to head to our first gym again, with our rematch against Charon. This time I decide to start with Baby Dragon instead of Ancient Elf, because that should mean I can use Ancient Elf's low kick elsewhere in the fight. I start with Leech Seed, and then Porygon goes for a workup. Much to my amusement, because Porygon copies Snively's ability with Trace, it now has Contrary. Contrary reverses any stat changes, so instead of raising its attack with workup, Porygon just lowered its own attack. Gonna pretend I did that on purpose. A Leaf Tornado then brings Porygon into the yellow, as Porygon just goes for another workup. Charon, are you okay? A second Leaf Tornado then misses the KO as Porygon lands a strong Swift that luckily is mostly healed by Leech Seed. One more Leaf Tornado is then enough for the KO. Second is Lillipup, so I immediately go for a strong Leaf Tornado as Lillipup gets off the workup. A second Leaf Tornado brings Lillipup really low before Lillipup lands a super strong Retaliate that very nearly KOs Dragon. Luckily, on the next turn, another Leaf Tornado is enough for another KO. Third is Doduo, so I switch into Wingard on a workup. Doduo then goes for a second workup as Wingard misses an Air Cutter. That could be game changing. Doduo then goes for a third workup as an Air Cutter connects. Luckily, Doduo gets greedy on the next turn and goes for another workup, allowing Wingard to get the KO with a second Air Cutter. If Charon hadn't gotten greedy there, I could have just been swept. Fourth is Munchlax, so I switch into Ancient Elf on a Rock Tomb. A low kick from Elf then does massive damage as Rock Tomb connects, bringing Elf really low. Unfortunately, having his speed lowered twice means that Elf is outsped on the next turn, and a tackle takes down my rat. Rest in peace, buddy, you just weren't meant to make it through this fight. With Elf down, I descend to send in Rogue Doll, who I'm hoping will be able to finish off this Munchlax with a single brine. Of course, Munchlax is a tanky boy and is able to survive, meaning Rogue Doll has to take a hard tackle before getting the KO on the following turn with the second brine. Fifth is Dealing, so I switch Wingard back out. On the switch, Dealing goes for a workup. Dealing then lands a Leech Seed as Wingard lands an Air Cutter that just misses the KO. Thankfully, Wingard just has to take one more tackle before landing a Gust for the KO on the following turn. Charon's down to his last Pokemon, Apom. I decide to switch into Mant as Apom goes for a workup. Apom outspeeds on the next turn and gets off another workup, and then Mant lands a Super Fang to bring the monkey to 50% HP. Apom then misses a double hit and Mant just misses the KO with a Water Pulse. We're so close, just need a bit more luck here, and we've won, so I go through another Water Pulse and Apom goes for a Water Pulse that does next to nothing, meaning Wingard is able to land a final attack and win us the match. We've done it, we made it past the first gym, and if that fight was anything to go by, this run is only just getting started. First badge acquired. It's then time to get some more encounters before our next gym fight. Firstly, once we arrive in Verbank City, we can find a man that offers us one of the Kanto starters. Now, I'm tempted to pick Bulbasaur here, as his poison typing will remove the toxic spikes that the next gym leader is going to try and set up. I decide on Charmander though, as I don't have any fire types yet, and I'm going to need at least one for the third gym. I then head to Verbank Complex to catch my next team member. A Steel type would be amazing here, as it would make the next gym so much easier, but unfortunately I get a Growlithe instead. Growlithe is doubly annoying because I just picked Charmander because I didn't have a fire type. Oh well, my mistake for not coming to Verbank Complex first before picking my Kanto starter. Leogun should still be really useful as this puppy has Intimidate. With 2 fire types acquired, we're then ready for the next gym, and Roxy is really scary as, like with Charon, I don't have a direct counter to her gym type. Gonna have to hope and pray this goes well. So Roxy starts with Trubbish and I start with Wingard. To my surprise, Trubbish actually goes for a Drain Punch on the first turn, meaning I can avoid any toxic spikes from being set up with a taunt. With Trubbish taunted, I decide to switch into Leogun as the trash bag goes for a second weak Drain Punch. Trubbish then lands a third Drain Punch that doesn't do too much, as Leo Gun is able to land a Flame Wheel that does over 50%. Now I have to take a massive risk, as I know that there's a high chance of Trubbish going through Explosion here. I don't have anyone that can really take that hit though, so I stay in with my pup, hoping maybe that the AI just won't, and of course, Trubbish explodes, and Leo Gun survives on 2 HP. Madness. With the stupid trash bag down, second Thoroxy is Quillfish. I decide to switch into Mant on an Aqua Jet. Quillfish then lands a strong Venoshock, while Mant lands a Yawn. Quillfish is then able to land a second Venoshock that brings Mant to 50% as she lands a Super Fang. Quillfish then falls asleep, so I'm safe to switch into Wingard, who is able to set up a Tailwind. With Tailwind up, Wingard is able to outspeed and KO with an Air Cutter. Third is Coughing, who is very nearly taken down by a single crit Air Cutter, but annoyingly he survives and gets off a Poison Gas. A second Air Cutter is then able to KO on the following turn. Fourth is Ivysaur, so I switch into Red Eyes. On the switch, Ivysaur lands a Leech Seed, so I decide to immediately get rid of it by switching into Mant as Ivysaur goes for a Protect. That's perfect, as I can now switch back into Red Eyes on a Mega Drain. I then go through an Ember, which surprisingly doesn't do much, but I do get the burn. Ivysaur then lands another Leech Seed, so I switch back into Mant. On the switch, Ivysaur lands a strong Venoshock, but luckily Mant survives, so I can switch back into Red Eyes. Annoyingly though, Mant is so low, Ivysaur doesn't go through the Mega Drain on the switch, instead going through a really strong Venoshock. That's really bad, but I really don't have a choice here but to take a risk with Red Eyes, so I stay in and land a really strong Ember that unfortunately just misses the KO, meaning Ivysaur is able to land another Venoshock and KO my young dragon. Rest in peace Red Eyes, you will be remembered. Luckily, the Ivysaur at least goes down to burn damage. I then decide to send out Rogue Doll, as Roxy sends out Ghastly. Luckily, Ghastly starts with a Torment, allowing Rogue Doll to land a Scold that does over 50%. Unfortunately though, Ghastly is then able to hit back with a Mega Drain that one-shots my monkey. Rest in peace Rogue Doll. From there, Ghastly is able to outspeed and one-shot my remaining Pokemon in a gruesome slaughter, ending attempt 2. Wow, that was another really close fight, but unfortunately, we couldn't quite pull off a win. We gave it our all though, and now I'm determined to get through this early game, so on with attempt 3. And attempt 3 doesn't go well, as I get wiped by the Team Plasma Grunt before the first gym. Maybe attempt 4 will go better. On to attempt 4 then. We managed to get back to the second gym leader with a new roster of Pokemon, only losing Gorlag the Cubchoo to Cheron. This time around, along with our set encounters of Baby Dragon, Rogue Doll and Red Eyes, we catch a Purloin we name Barox on Route 19, a Bellsprout on Route 20 we name Armoril, and a Voltorb we name Mega in the Bank Complex. Still no Steel type unfortunately, but let's see if we've got what it takes in round 2 with Roxy. While Roxy starts with Trubbish again, this time I start with Barox. I immediately go through a Fake Out for some chip, and then go through a Strong Assurance while Trubbish sets up Toxic Spikes. Barox then takes down the stupid trash bag. Second is Whirlipede, so I switch into Armoril on a stupidly strong Steamroller. At least the Toxic Spikes have been removed. Whirlipede then goes for a second Steamroller that very nearly KOs, but luckily my giant Venus Flytrap survives on 2 HP and then is able to land a Sleep Powder. With Whirlipede asleep, I switch into Red Eyes. With Red Eyes out, I'm free to land 2 Embers as Whirlipede stays asleep. One more Ember is then enough for the KO as Whirlipede lands a Facade. Third, the Roxy is coughing, so I immediately switch into Rogue Doll on a strong Venoshock. A Scold on the following turn then does minimal damage as another Venoshock brings Rogue Doll really low. I decide to take a risk and get off another Scold that brings coughing to below half, and unfortunately Rogue Doll is KO'd by another Venoshock. Rest in peace my little blue monkey. Thankfully, Barox is able to come in and finish off the stupid floating ball with a Fake Out and 2 Assurances. Fourth, the Roxy is Quillfish, so I immediately switch into Mega. On the switch, my Voltorb takes a Venoshock that doesn't do too much. Quillfish then lands a strong priority Aqua Jet before just surviving a Charge Beam. I decide that Quillfish will probably go through another Aqua Jet again, so I switch into Baby Dragon. My prediction is correct, meaning that Baby Dragon is able to come into 3, take a strong Venoshock, and then finish off Qwilfish with a Leaf Tornado. Fourth for Roxy is Ivysaur, and I decide I don't really have a choice here but to let Baby Dragon go down, so I stay in and take another Venoshock, watching as my starter is taken out. Rest in peace, my snaky boy. I then send in Red Eyes, who of course misses the KO with a Flame Burst and then gets hit with a Leech Seed. Ivysaur then stalls for a turn with Protect before going down to a second Flame Burst. Last is the Murderous Ghastly, and if Barracks can survive one hit, I can still win this, but I'm gonna need another sacrifice, so I salute as I send in Armoril. Armoril goes down to a Venoshock, meaning I can get my kitty in for 3. If he can survive one hit here, I've won, so I click Assurance and just pray, and to my shock, Barracks actually outspeeds and lands an Assurance for the win. It only cost me half my team, but we've won our second gym badge of the run. Thank you, Roxy. Moving on from that, we can take what remains of our team to go get some new encounters in the hopes of building some sort of team that might be able to take on Berg, as his gym is coming up fast. Firstly, in the big city, we get to pick one of the Johto starters, and with the bug gym right around the corner, I have no choice but to pick Cyndaquil, who is pretty adorable and strong, so I'm not complaining. Welcome aboard, Silverfang. En Route 4, we find and catch a Numel we name Yarenzo. Another fire type is good for the upcoming gym, but probably not the most useful thing in the world. I then head into the sewers, and I'm desperate for a Zubat here, and to my surprise, I actually find one. Darksage will be incredible as a Crobat, so I'm really happy to have found him. Before heading towards Relic Passage, I actually explore Castelia City some more, and after defeating a stupid amount of trainers, I get given an egg. I usually would be annoyed at this, as I've already gotten my Castelia City encounter, but I actually realise if I hatch this egg in the gate before Castelia, it actually counts as a different encounter area to Castelia, meaning I can add the newly hatched Bonsly, Giant Germ, to my team. Then it's back to Castelia Sewers, and I eventually reach Relic Passage, where I find my most important encounter so far. Inside, I find and catch a Nincada. Now, Nincada not only gives me access to a pretty strong Pokemon in Ninjask, the Cyber Falcon, but Jinzo, the Shedinja, is the real prize here. Shedinja is the most broken Pokemon in this entire game, and it would just straight up ban him. However, I am playing one of the hardest ROM hacks on the hardest difficulty with no setup, so I think if luck dictated I should get this Pokemon, I should use it, so that'll be super useful later on. With our team rebuilt and looking to be in a pretty good position against Berg, I'm ready for my third gym challenge of the run, and I'm pretty confident about this even if this gym fight is a double battle. So let's start this. Berg starts with Motham and Masquerain, and I start with Barracks and Red Eyes. I decide to immediately switch Barracks out into Darksage. Darksage is then able to take both the Bug Buzz and Struggle Bug that Barracks was baiting with no real issues, while Red Eyes lands a strong Flame Burst into Motham. I decide I need to keep Darksage healthy here, so I switch back into Barracks as a quick attack from Red Eyes KOs the Motham. Masquerain then goes for a Soak into Red Eyes, which is an interesting choice because I don't really see how it helps Berg other than getting rid of my stab. On the next turn, I decide to fake out the Masquerain and get off a weak Flame Burst into the Vespiquen. Unfortunately, Barracks is then hit by an attack order that takes down my kitty. Rest in peace, I'll never forget what you did for me in that second gym fight. With Barracks down, I send in Darksage, who is immediately able to KO the Masquerain with a wing attack. Red Eyes continues to do low damage into Vespiquen, who hits back with a super strong Revenge before Heracross comes out. With Red Eyes so low, I decide to switch into Giant Germ, and Darksage is able to cleanly one-shot the Heracross with a wing attack as Giant Germ tanks an attack order. Next the Berg is Leavanny, and I assume Revenge and Leaf Blade are probably going into the Giant Germ slot here, so I switch into Silverfang. Darksage is able to land a wing attack onto the Leavanny that only survives thanks to a Focus Sash. Silverfang then takes a Leaf Blade and Revenge from Leavanny and Vespiquen, but luckily he takes both the hits. I then assume Silver is going to bait both attacks here, so I switch back into Giant Germ. Leavanny immediately falls to a second wing attack as Vespiquen lands a critical hit Power Gem that does huge damage into Giant Germ. Last the Berg is Excalibur, so I switch into Yarenzo as Dark Sage takes down Berg's Big B. Unfortunately though, Excavalier then goes for a Razor Shell into Yarenzo, taking down my miniature camel. Rest in peace buddy, you never had your chance to do much of anything. Well, Berg's down to his last Pokemon, so at least we've won, or so I think, as I go through a Wing Attack and Flame Burst from Silverfang, but annoyingly, Excavalier is holding a berry that reduces the super effective damage from fire attacks, meaning he survives on basically no HP and is able to hit back and KO Silverfang. On the next turn, another 2 attacks are enough to get us the win, but I'm so annoyed. We almost made it through that with only 1 death. Even if I had noticed the Ochre Berry, there was really no way I could have played around it in the position I was in. 3rd gym down, but we once again lost half our team. This is rough. We're now on our way to the mid game, and that means after a pretty easy fight with Colrus, we can get some new encounters that I desperately need. Firstly, in the desert resort, I find a Skarmory I name Harpy Lady, and I'm just happy I have a Pokemon that isn't weak to rock. I then head into Relic Castle to find a Yamask. Yamask should be a really useful supportive wall, so overall 2 good encounters. Before heading into Nimbasa City, I have to deal with a pretty scary double battle with Lenora and her husband, but luckily, with access to Will-O-Wisp and some clever switches, I'm able to push through with no losses. We then get some more encounters. On Route 5, I find a Ponyta who I name X-Head Cannon. Ponyta should be okay. I suppose I shouldn't really turn down another fire type as mine seem to keep dying. I'm then able to head over towards Anvil Town and get my choice of Hoenn starters. Now all of these would be really useful, but I'm going to go with Mudkip because otherwise I'm going to go into the next gym without a ground type, which doesn't sound very fun. It's then time for our 4th gym fight against Elisa, and I'll be completely honest, I came up with a pretty good plan for this fight, went in and then found out it was a triple battle which my docs didn't tell me. Now, had I carried on and tried to fight like this, I would have just lost, no questions asked. So for full transparency, as soon as I saw it was a triple battle, I did restart and replan my strategy. I'm sure some people will say that invalidates the run, but like losing just because I didn't know this was a triple battle. So with that out the way, let's get on with the real fight. I start with Labyrinth, Pumpkin and Giant Germ, while Elisa starts with Emolga, Lantern and Electivire. Emolga starts the fight with a discharge that does good damage into Labyrinth and Giant Germ. Electivire then goes for a second discharge that only hits my overly large coffin and then annoyingly paralyzes. A third discharge from Lantern then raises both Emolga's and Electivire's speed and does slightly more damage to both Labyrinth and Giant Germ. Pumpkin then lands a Bulldoze that does good damage into Lantern and Electivire. Giant Germ lands a Rock Tomb into Emolga, who only survives thanks to a Poker Sash. Labyrinth then lands a Hex into the Lantern and it just misses the KO. With Labyrinth so low, I immediately switch into Jinzo. A Sucker Punch from Giant Germ KOs the Emolga, while a Discharge from Electivire does nothing. A second Bulldoze from Pumpkin is then enough for a double KO on Lantern and Electivire. Then Stunkfish, Raichu and Zebstrika come out, so I switch in Red Eyes, X-Head Cannon and Labyrinth. Luckily, my switches were all well placed, because X-Head Cannon only has to take a crit Flare Blitz on the switch, Red Eyes has to take a Grass Knot, and Labyrinth has to take an Earth Power that she just barely survives. I then play the switching game again to reposition. X-Head Cannon is switched to Pumpkin, Red Eyes is switched to Jinzo, and Labyrinth for Giant Germ. And unfortunately, I'm not so lucky with my predictions this time, as Giant Germ has to take one for the team, being KO'd by a high horsepower. I then send in X-Head Cannon, who I'm going to have to also let go down here. Jinzo is able to break the Raichu's air balloon, and then Zebstrika lands another high horsepower, KOing my Flame Horse. Rest in peace. In revenge for his fallen comrade, Pumpkin is able to KO the Zebstrika with another Bulldoze. A Bulldoze from Red Eyes and an Aqua Tail from Pumpkin are then enough to KO the Stinky Stunkfish, and then on the following turn, Jinzo is able to end the fight and take down Raichu with a single Shadow Sneak. That's it, 4th gym down. We had to sacrifice 2 brave friends to win, but we did it, meaning we've won our 4th gym badge. We're then ready to head towards our 5th gym fight, but before we can get to any other encounters, we have to get past Charles, and I'll be honest, this fight is a nightmare. Triple battles with this much coverage and the limited amount of Pokemon I have means I pretty much have to get KOs as fast as I can, or I'm not going to get through it without taking losses, and unfortunately, Charles's Pokemon are just tanky enough to survive long enough to take down my longest standing member, Red Eyes, the Charizard. Rest in peace, buddy. Losing Charizard really sucks, but I was honestly just lucky to get through that fight at all. We're then able to get some more encounters to fill our dwindling ranks. Firstly, on Driftvale Drawbridge, we catch a Swablu we name Cardguard. Swablu has Cloud 9, which removes weather effects from fights while he's out. This means he should be fairly useful against a lot of the weather fights coming up. Heading over to Route 6 from Driftvale, I'm able to find a Thungus I name Overboost, and Thungus is just always really useful, so I'm happy to add one to my party. Heading back to Driftvale, we get to pick our choice of Sinnoh starters, and all of these are super strong, but I pick Turtwig as she's immediately useful against the next gym leader, so welcome to the team. We're then ready for our 5th gym fight versus Clay, so let's see how this goes. I start with Overboost, and Clay starts with Seismitoad. Seismitoad immediately lands an Ice Punch that does good damage, but Overboost is able to hit back with a crit Mega Drain that heals a lot of the damage back. A second Mega Drain is then enough for the KO. Second is Nidoking, so I switch into Harpy Lady on an Ice Beam that crits. Harpy Lady survives, but only on 1 HP, which is really bad, as now I don't know if Nidoking will go for Ice Beam or Thunderbolt on the following turn. Because of this, I decide I'd have to let Harpy Lady go down, so I stay in as Nidoking lands a second Ice Beam for the KO. Rest in peace, Harpy Lady. With Harpy Lady down, I'm 3 to send in Pumpkin, who has to take a strong Earth Power before KOing with an Aqua Tail. Third is Torterra, and I'm now in a really awkward spot as I was planning to use Harpy Lady to take this monster down. I decide I'm going to have to make another sacrifice here, so I send in Overboost on a Wood Hammer, and Torterra gets paralyzed thanks to Effect Spore. That's huge, as I can now take a risk with Labyrinth and send him in, and of course she has to take a Head Smash on the switch. A Hex then brings Torterra really low before it then gets off a Shell Smash. That's horrifying, but luckily on the next turn Torterra gets paralyzed, meaning Labyrinth is able to land a second Hex for the KO. Fourth is Mamoswine, who immediately lands a super strong Earthquake, but Labyrinth is able to pull through and land a Will-O-Wisp. God, I love this coffin. Annoyingly though, she's still too low to take a hit, even with Mamoswine burned, so it looks like I'm gonna have to make another sacrifice here. I decide to send in Overboost on an Icicle Crash, and unfortunately it lands and KOs my poor Mushroom. Rest in peace. This is getting really dicey, but I don't have a choice here but to hope maybe Pumpkin can survive the hit. So I switch him in and just pray he can take an Earthquake, and he survives on 16 HP. This means he's able to get off an Aqua Tail that thankfully KOs. Fourth is Garchomp, and I really need Garchomp to go for Dragon Claw on the switch, and instead it goes for an extreme speed as Cardguard comes in. I'm now unsure if Cardguard can survive an Earthquake, but I really don't have a choice here but to try and find out, so I click Dragon Pulse as Earthquake connects, and Cardguard survives and is able to land a Dragon Pulse that doesn't even do half. God, my Cloud Dragon kinda sucks. That means I'm gonna have to make another sacrifice here, so I send in Pumpkin on an extreme speed and watch as he goes down. Rest in peace, my lord. With Pumpkin down though, I'm 3 to send in Water, tank a Dragon Claw, and then KO with a critical hit Leaf Blade. Last is Excadrill, and now there's only one chance I can see of winning this fight, and it starts with letting Labyrinth go down, so I switch on a Sword Stance. Sword Stance pretty much means this is game over, but I gotta try, so I stay in with Labyrinth and watch as she goes down to an X-Scissor. Rest in peace, my overly large coffin. I then send in Cardguard, who I'm hoping will outspeed, so I go for a Hail Mary Sing, and Excadrill outspeeds and KOs with a Rock Slide, taking down my Cloud Dragon. Last is Water, and it's all over as there's no way he can survive a +2 X-Scissor, so I send her in and watch as attempt 4 ends. I put up a pretty good fight there, but unfortunately, I just don't think I had the tools I needed to win, meaning we're going on to attempt 5. And I'll be honest, I lose attempt 5, 6, 7, and 8 without even getting back to clay. Now, by the time we get to run 9, I've actually lost a lot of my sanity, but run 9 starts looking really good as we make it to clay with minimal casualties and even find a shiny Audino along the way. This run has got to be blessed. So let's jump right in and see if this time around we have what it takes to beat clay. This time around I start with Pumpkin, and clay once again starts with Seismitoad. With Pumpkin out, I bait Power Whip so I can 3-ly switch into Dark Zebra, the Sawsbuck, who has Sap Sipper. This means I get a 3 attack boost, which I can then use to one-shot the stupid Toad with a Horn Leech, even with a damage reducing berry. Second is Nidoking, who I could probably one-shot with a high horsepower, but I don't think Sawsbuck outspeeds here. I know Nidoking will go through a Sludge Wave however, so I can switch into Donma. Donma then baits an Earthquake, so I switch into Gorlag. With Gorlag into 3, I can then one-shot with a Bubble Beam. Third for clay is Torterra, and for my plan to work, I have to let Gorlag go down here, so I stay in and get off an Icy Wind that very nearly KOs, but the Torterra goes for a Head Smash that KOs my overgrown duck. Rest in peace buddy, you did your job. This is all part of the plan, as I can now send in Pumpkin to bait a Wood Hammer, and then send in Dark Zebra for the attack boost again. One Horn Leech is then enough for the KO. Fourth is Mamoswine, who doesn't see the KO with Ice Shard, so I'm safe to get off another Horn Leech through another KO. Fifth is Excadrill, who would be scary, but again, because the AI doesn't see the KO with X-Scissor, Excadrill just goes through a Swords Dance, allowing Dark Zebra to land a Jump Kick through another KO. Last is Garchomp, so I switch into my tank on a Brick Break. Tank then has to tank an Earthquake, upon then stealing Garchomp's berry with a Covert. With the berry gone, I'm free to send in Cyberjar on a weak extreme speed. Garchomp is then able to get off to strong Brick Break, but Cyberjar survives and is able to land a single Aurora Beam for the KO. F you Clay, we've done it, we've made it past the insane run ender that is Clay, even if it did cost us our Gen 5 duck. 5th Gym Badge acquired, I can now finally, after so long in real time, carry on with the rest of the game. On our way to Mistralton City, we can then catch some more encounters. Firstly, in Mistralton Cave, we find a Bagon, and I don't think I need to explain just how good Flying Penguin is, do I? Inside Chargestone Cave, we find a Geodude, and honestly, Geodude is very often just kinda mid, but with a very scary Flying Gym Leader right around the corner, Gateguard should find some use. Once we reach Mistralton City, we're able to head on towards Celestic Tower and find ourselves a useful Zebstrika on Route 7. Excalibur is exactly what I needed before the next gym, and to continue my run of really strong encounters, in Celestial Tower, I find a Bronzong with Levitate. Levitate means Copycat is immune to Earthquake, which is super strong. Unfortunately, almost as punishment for getting such amazing encounters, I do lose my Dugtrio, Battle Ox, the Samurott, and Cyberjar, the Walrein, to some random trainers I wasn't even really paying attention to. I think I'm at the point in this hack where I'm going to have to start paying attention to every single random trainer battle because they're all starting to become very scary. Oh well, easy come, easy go. Rest in peace guys. Now, before we can get to our confrontation with Skylar, we have a very strange battle with Colress to deal with. For instance, he starts the fight with a literal Mecha Godzilla that can't fit on the screen, which is kind of scary to be honest, especially when it starts the fight with an Iron Head into Dark Zebra that does massive damage. Dark Zebra is able to hit back with a strong jump kick, but then MT's red card activates, forcing in Fly Penguin. Fly Penguin immediately gets hit with a weaker Iron Head and then is able to hit back with a weak Crunch. MT then spends a turn setting up Stealth Rock while I set up a Wish. Fly Penguin then somehow outspeeds and is able to KO with a second Crunch. Colress then sends in his literal UFO, so I switch into Pumpkin on a really strong Aeroblast. With Aeroblast doing so much, I'm tempted to go through a Yawn, but I decide to play aggressive instead and go through an Avalanche. Pumpkin luckily survives the second Aeroblast, but annoyingly, Avalanche only brings the UFO to half. God, this thing is tanky. I decide to switch into Copycat, who tanks an Aeroblast fairly well. The stupidly big UFO then Volt switches into MT2, meaning Copycat is able to land a weak payback, at least removing MT2's balloon. With the air balloon gone, I decide to switch into Water, and MT2 goes for a shift gear. That could be absolutely terrifying, especially as a massively powerful Meteor Mash brings Water to below half. Luckily, my big tree survives and is able to KO with a single Earthquake. Then the UFO comes back out, and I'm a little bit stuck on how to deal with this thing, because I didn't think to teach any of my Pokemon Rock-type moves. I decide I want to take a risk and try to land a Leech Seed with Water, but unfortunately he is outsped and taken down by an Aeroblast. Rest in peace, you won't be forgotten. I'm now in a really bad spot, but if Time Wizard can survive and land a Yawn, I might be okay. So I go through a Yawn, and the UFO has Magic Bounce. That's really bad, especially because Time Wizard then has to take a massive amount from an Aeroblast. I decide I should switch into Fly Penguin, who hopefully can take a hit and set up a Wish. Of course, as I switch, Colrus goes for a Volt switch and sends out his cute little F00 robot. Now, I really do need to get Wish set up here, so I decide to stay in and just pray my dragon can survive an extreme speed. Of course, Fly Penguin doesn't and is taken down before I can get off a Wish. This game, I'm losing to a random Colrus fight because I didn't think to put any rock moves on my team. I now decide I want to risk Time Wizard again, who should be able to one-shot if he outspeeds, and of course, I'm a fucking idiot because I forgot about Stealth Rocks. What a waste of one of my longest running Pokemon, and what a stupid way to lose my best attempt so far. Dark Zebra and Pumpkin are both taken out by the little smiling stained robot before Copycat goes down to the herpes blimp. What a stupid and embarrassing way to lose a run. Taurus and this game. This isn't the end. I swear I'm beating this game if it's the last thing I do.